There comes a point in a man's life when long periods of solitude begin to reshape the way he sees the world in a profound and lasting way. Living alone for years is not merely about physical isolation or the absence of company. It is a slow psychological and emotional process that strips away distractions and forces a man to confront himself. In the beginning, solitude often feels uncomfortable. The silence is loud. The absence of constant interaction exposes thoughts that were previously drowned out by routine, social noise, or emotional dependence. But over time, that discomfort becomes a teacher. When a man lives alone for years, he starts developing an inner relationship with himself. He learns how his mind behaves when no one is watching, when there is no one to impress, and when there is no external validation available. This self-observation builds awareness. He begins to recognize his patterns, insecurities, desires, and fears with greater honesty. Instead of reacting impulsively, he learns to pause, reflect, and understand the root of his emotions. This inner discipline becomes the foundation of maturity. Solitude also changes how a man experiences time. Without constant social obligations, he becomes more intentional with his hours and energy. He discovers what genuinely fulfills him and what merely distracts him. This awareness creates a sense of independence. He no longer feels incomplete without someone else filling the space. He realizes that peace is not something given by another person, but something cultivated within. This realization is crucial because it removes desperation from future relationships. As this inner stability develops, a man's perception of relationships begins to shift. He stops seeking connection as a way to escape himself. Instead, he becomes comfortable in his own presence. Living alone teaches him that loneliness and solitude are not the same. Loneliness comes from emotional emptiness, while solitude can be rich, grounding, and deeply restorative. Through this distinction, he learns that being alone does not mean being lacking. This inner clarity slowly influences how he later views women. Instead of approaching relationships from need, fear, or fantasy, he approaches them from awareness. His expectations become more realistic, his emotions more regulated, and his intentions clearer. The long years of solitude do not make him emotionally distant. They make him emotionally grounded. By learning how to stand firmly on his own, he builds a stable inner foundation that shapes every future connection. After years of living alone, a man gradually stops idealizing women. And this shift happens quietly, almost without him noticing at first. Earlier in life, attraction is often fueled by fantasy. A woman is not seen as she truly is, but as a projection of unmet emotional needs, desires, and hopes. Movies, social media, cultural narratives, and peer pressure all reinforce the idea that love will complete him, save him, or give his life meaning. But prolonged solitude begins to dismantle these illusions. When a man spends years on his own, he is forced to face his emotional gaps directly. There is no one to distract him from feelings of insecurity, boredom, or dissatisfaction. Over time, he learns that no external person can permanently fill those gaps. This realization slowly breaks the habit of idealization. He understands that placing women on a pedestal only creates imbalance, disappointment, and unnecessary suffering for both sides. Idealization fades not because he becomes cold, but because he becomes honest. Living alone teaches him to separate attraction from fantasy. Physical beauty and charm no longer dominate his perception. He starts noticing behavior, values, consistency, and emotional maturity. Instead of imagining who a woman could be, he pays attention to who she actually is. This clarity allows him to appreciate women without distorting them through unrealistic expectations. He sees strengths without exaggeration and flaws without resentment. As fantasy dissolves, respect grows. A woman is no longer seen as a symbol of happiness or status, but as a complex human being with her own struggles, ambitions, fears, and contradictions. This humanized view deepens his emotional intelligence. He listens more carefully, reacts less defensively, and understands that differences are not threats, but natural expressions of individuality. Idealization once blinded him, realism now grounds him. Years of solitude also teach him the emotional cost of illusion. He remembers past disappointments that were not caused by others, but by his own projections. This self-awareness makes him more responsible in how he forms connections. He no longer rushes into emotional attachment or builds castles in his mind before trust is earned. His pace becomes slower, calmer, and more intentional. In this new perspective, attraction becomes cleaner and healthier. He can admire beauty without attachment and feel desire without losing self-control. He can enjoy connection without the fear of losing himself. Women are no longer placed above him or below him. They stand beside him as equals. This shift marks a major psychological transformation. By letting go of fantasy, a man gains clarity, balance, and a deeper capacity for genuine connection. Living alone for years quietly teaches a man emotional self-sufficiency, and this lesson becomes one of the most transformative aspects of solitude. In the absence of constant companionship, a man can no longer rely on others to regulate his emotional state. There is no one immediately available to comfort him, distract him, or validate his feelings. At first, this can feel overwhelming. Emotions surface without filters, and unresolved patterns come to light. But over time, he learns how to sit with his feelings instead of running from them. Through this process, a man develops emotional resilience. He learns how to process stress, disappointment, and uncertainty without external reassurance. Instead of seeking approval, he learns self-acceptance. Instead of reacting impulsively, he responds with awareness. This inner stability reshapes how he experiences relationships. He no longer enters connections carrying emotional weight that another person is expected to carry for him. As emotional self-sufficiency grows, his view of women becomes calmer and more balanced. He no longer seeks constant attention, affection, or reassurance to feel secure. This absence of emotional dependence removes pressure from interactions. Conversations feel lighter, more genuine, and less driven by hidden expectations. He does not look to women to soothe his insecurities or give him a sense of worth. He already possesses those internally. This shift also changes what he finds attractive. Emotional chaos, unpredictability, or excessive drama no longer feels exciting. What once felt intense now feels draining. Instead, he becomes drawn to emotional maturity, stability, and authenticity. He values women who are comfortable with themselves, who communicate honestly, and who take responsibility for their emotions. This preference is not rooted in judgment, but in alignment. His inner calm seeks outer harmony. Emotional self-sufficiency also improves communication. A man who understands his own emotions can express himself more clearly. He listens without defensiveness and speaks without manipulation. He no longer uses silence, anger, or withdrawal as tools of control. This emotional clarity fosters mutual respect and deeper understanding. Women feel safer expressing themselves around him because he is not overwhelmed by emotional intensity. Perhaps most importantly, emotional self-sufficiency allows a man to love without losing himself. He can care deeply without becoming attached to outcomes. He can invest emotionally while remaining grounded. If a connection ends, he experiences sadness without collapse. Loss no longer defines him. This inner strength creates a healthier dynamic where love is chosen freely, not clung to out of fear. Years of solitude teach him that emotional fullness begins within. When a man no longer needs someone to complete him, he becomes capable of offering something far more valuable: presence, stability, and genuine connection. Solitude does more than quiet the mind. Over the years, it sharpens a man's sense of boundaries in a way that only lived experience can. When a man lives alone for a long time, he becomes deeply aware of his personal rhythm. He knows how much silence he needs, how much stimulation he can handle, and what disrupts his inner balance. This awareness naturally turns into boundaries, not rigid walls, but clear lines that protect his mental and emotional space. In earlier stages of life, boundaries are often weak or undefined. A man may tolerate behavior that drains him simply to avoid being alone. He may accept disrespect, emotional inconsistency, or confusion because the fear of solitude feels worse than discomfort. Years of living alone dissolve this fear. Once a man realizes that he can be at peace by himself, he no longer trades his well-being for companionship. This is where boundaries become non-negotiable. As a result, his view of women becomes clearer, not harsher. He no longer confuses intensity with connection or chaos with passion. Emotional manipulation, mixed signals, or constant drama stand out immediately as disruptions to his peace. Instead of engaging, he steps back, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. His boundaries are not punishments, they are standards. This clarity also changes how he chooses to invest his time. A man who has lived alone understands the value of his energy. He knows how long it took to build inner stability, and he is careful about where he places it. He is willing to walk away from connections that feel misaligned even if attraction exists. This discipline reflects maturity. He understands that attraction without alignment leads to imbalance. Boundaries also deepen respect. When a man respects his own limits, he naturally respects the boundaries of women as well. He does not pressure, rush, or emotionally overwhelm. He allows space for individuality and growth. This mutual respect creates healthier dynamics where both people feel safe and valued. Boundaries become a bridge, not a barrier. Perhaps the most powerful shift is that he no longer chooses connection out of fear. He chooses it intentionally. Living alone has taught him that solitude is not the enemy, emotional chaos is. So when he allows someone into his life, it is because they had clarity, not confusion, peace, not disturbance, growth, not stagnation. In this way, years of solitude refine a man's relational compass. His boundaries guide him toward connections that are grounded, respectful, and emotionally sustainable. They are not built to keep women out, but to ensure that whoever enters does so with honesty, balance, and mutual care. After living alone for years, a man gradually stops chasing validation through relationships, and this shift changes everything about how he views women. Earlier in life, validation often comes from external sources. Attention, admiration, and approval can feel like proof of worth. A man may unconsciously measure his value by how desired he feels or how much interest he receives. But solitude removes this external feedback loop. When there is no one constantly affirming or rejecting him, he is forced to confront a deeper question: who am I without validation? Over time, he learns to answer that question from within. Living alone teaches him to build self-worth through consistency, discipline, and self-respect rather than through praise. He becomes proud of the life he can maintain on his own, the routines he keeps, the growth he achieves without applause. This inner grounding replaces the hunger for validation with quiet confidence. He no longer needs to be seen to feel secure. As a result, women are no longer mirrors reflecting his worth back to him. He does not approach them seeking approval or trying to impress. The pressure to perform fades. Conversations become more natural, and presence replaces strategy. He is no longer trying to prove something. He is simply being himself. This authenticity changes the dynamic completely. Without the need for validation, competition also disappears. A man who is secure within himself does not feel threatened by other men or by a woman's independence. He does not compare himself or fear replacement. This emotional security allows him to appreciate women as they are, not as judges of his value. He can admire strength without insecurity and beauty without possessiveness. This independence also transforms how he experiences attraction. Women are no longer something to conquer, win, or impress. They become companions and equals. He values conversation, shared perspective, and emotional alignment more than attention or admiration. His interest becomes selective and intentional, guided by resonance rather than ego. Letting go of validation also makes him more present. He listens instead of performing. He connects instead of impressing. He notices subtle emotional cues and responds with sincerity. This depth creates a stronger foundation for genuine connection. Women sense this presence because it is rare. It feels calm, grounded, and real, perhaps the most powerful outcome of releasing validation seeking is freedom. A man who does not need approval can walk away without resentment and stay without attachment. He chooses relationships because they add meaning, not because they define him. This freedom brings balance, honesty, and emotional integrity into his interactions. In the end, solitude teaches him that worth is not given, it is built. And when a man no longer seeks validation from women, he becomes capable of offering something far more valuable. In return, authenticity, respect, and genuine connection. Years of living alone have a quiet way of deepening a man's empathy, often in ways he never expected. Solitude does not harden him. Instead, it turns his attention inward, where he is forced to confront parts of himself he once avoided. Without distractions, he faces his fears, regrets, emotional wounds, and unresolved memories. This inner confrontation is not comfortable, but it is honest, and honesty with oneself becomes the foundation of understanding others. As he sits with his own struggles, he begins to recognize patterns. He sees how pain shaped his reactions, how insecurity influenced his choices, and how fear disguised itself as anger or withdrawal. This awareness softens him. He realizes that most human behavior is not driven by malice, but by unhealed emotion. This realization naturally extends outward. His view of women becomes less judgmental and more compassionate. Living alone teaches him that everyone is carrying something unseen. When a man has spent years processing his own inner world, he becomes less reactive to emotional expression in others. Instead of labeling emotions as weakness or inconvenience, he sees them as signals. He understands that emotional complexity is part of being human. This understanding allows him to hold space rather than rush to fix or dismiss. His empathy also grows because he no longer projects his unresolved issues onto women. Earlier in life, misunderstandings often stemmed from projection. Expectations, fears, or insecurities were unconsciously placed on others. Solitude interrupts this cycle. By facing himself fully, he removes much of the emotional distortion that once clouded his perception. Women are no longer blamed for feelings that originate within him. This deeper empathy transforms how he responds to vulnerability. When a woman expresses fear, confusion, or emotional pain, he does not feel overwhelmed or defensive. He listens. He recognizes familiar emotions from his own inner journey. This does not mean he tolerates unhealthy behavior, but he responds with clarity instead of judgment. Boundaries remain, but they are enforced with calm understanding rather than anger. Empathy also reshapes attraction. Emotional openness becomes more appealing than emotional performance. Authenticity feels safer than perfection. He values depth over image and truth over appearances. This shift creates more meaningful connections because it invites honesty from both sides. Women feel seen rather than analyzed, understood rather than evaluated. Perhaps the most important change is that empathy reconnects him to his own humanity. He understands that strength does not mean emotional suppression, it means emotional awareness. By embracing his own vulnerability, he becomes capable of meeting others with sincerity and care. In the end, solitude teaches a man that compassion begins within. By understanding his own pain, he gains the capacity to understand others. His view of women evolves into one rooted in patience, empathy, and emotional intelligence. Connection becomes less about control and more about mutual understanding, growth, and respect. After long periods of solitude, a man's sense of attraction becomes refined and selective. Years of living alone strip away impulsive desire and replace it with discernment. In earlier stages of life, attraction is often driven by intensity. Excitement, chemistry, and emotional highs feel powerful and intoxicating. But solitude changes the nervous system. A man who has learned to live in quiet stability becomes sensitive to what disrupts his peace. As a result, his standards evolve. He no longer mistakes emotional volatility for passion. What once felt thrilling now feels exhausting. Drama, unpredictability, and emotional games register as warning signs rather than invitations. This is not because he has lost the ability to feel deeply, but because he has learned the cost of chaos. Peace becomes more valuable than stimulation. This shift fundamentally reshapes how he views women and connection. Selectivity is not about being closed off, it is about being intentional. A man who has lived alone understands how rare inner balance is, and he protects it carefully. He pays attention to how he feels around someone. Does his body relax or tense? Does conversation feel nourishing or draining? These subtle signals guide his choices more than surface attraction. Emotional alignment becomes as important as physical chemistry. Values begin to matter more than appearance. He looks for honesty, accountability, and emotional intelligence. He is drawn to women who can communicate clearly, take responsibility for their emotions, and grow through challenges rather than create them. Shared values around respect, time, and growth become non-negotiable. Attraction deepens when there is mutual understanding, not just mutual desire. This selectivity also reduces attachment to outcome. A man no longer feels urgency to make something work at any cost. If alignment is missing, he accepts it without forcing connection. Walking away no longer feels like failure. It feels like self-respect. This calm detachment creates healthier dynamics because choice replaces desperation. Quality replaces quantity. One meaningful connection outweighs many shallow interactions. He would rather have fewer relationships that are honest and grounded than many that are exciting but empty. This perspective changes how he invests his energy. He shows up fully where it matters and disengages where it does not. Perhaps the most significant shift is that attraction becomes rooted in presence. He is drawn to how a woman exists, not how she performs. He notices authenticity, emotional steadiness, and inner depth. These qualities resonate with the life he has built within himself. In the end, long solitude teaches a man that not every connection is meant to be pursued. Selectivity is not loss, it is clarity. His view of women becomes guided by peace, alignment, and depth, leading to connections that are not only attractive but sustainable and meaningful. In the end, living alone for years does not distance a man from women. Instead, it refines his perception, his intentions, and his capacity for meaningful connection. Solitude acts like a filter, removing illusion, urgency, and emotional noise. What remains is clarity. A man who has spent years in his own company no longer approaches relationships from lack, fear, or dependency. He approaches them from wholeness. Through solitude, he learns that being alone is not something to escape. It is something to understand. He discovers that silence can be nourishing, that presence can be grounding, and that peace does not require constant companionship. This realization fundamentally changes how he chooses connection. He no longer seeks relationships to fill emptiness or distract from discomfort. He seeks them to share already complete inner life. This shift brings maturity into how he views women. He sees them as individuals, not roles, not sources of validation, not emotional caretakers, not symbols of success. He respects their autonomy, their complexity, and their right to exist fully as themselves. This respect creates space for healthier, more honest relationships. There's no pressure to perform, rescue, or complete one another, only the freedom to meet as equals. Living alone also teaches him patience. He understands that meaningful connection cannot be rushed. He allows relationships to unfold naturally without forcing intensity or attachment. If a connection develops, it does so with trust and emotional safety. If it does not, he accepts it without resentment. This patience is not indifference, it is emotional maturity. Perhaps the most powerful outcome of long solitude is intentional choice. A man who knows how to stand alone chooses connection deliberately. He invites someone into his life because they align with his values, his pace, and his sense of peace. He is not afraid of losing relationships because he knows he will not lose himself. This inner security transforms how love is given and received. His view of women is no longer shaped by fantasy, fear, or societal expectation. It is shaped by experience, self-knowledge, and emotional depth. He can appreciate beauty without attachment, intimacy without possession, and love without dependency. This balance allows connection to be freeing rather than consuming. G. In conclusion, years of living alone do not harden a man's heart. They strengthen it. Solitude teaches him clarity, empathy, boundaries, and self-respect. When he finally chooses connection, it is rooted in understanding rather than need. His view of women becomes one of genuine appreciation, balance, and respect, creating the foundation for relationships that are calm, conscious, and deeply fulfilling